When I was 20, I was reading the price of things from the wrong place. I was looking at the price tag, but the tag never told me what that thing actually cost me. The real price of an object is the hours I give up to buy it. The same object shows the same number to two people, but it does not carry the same price. One pays for it with money, the other with life. Learning this took me years. Today I am holding an old notebook, and inside it are the notes of the man I was at 20. If I were to write him a letter, I would not write more than 10 items. Today I will share those 10 items with you. On the first page of the notebook it says how many hours I worked in 1 week. Next to it I noted the money I received at the end of that week. And underneath I wrote what I wanted to buy with it. That young man left the house in the dark of the morning. When he came home in the evening, there was thread dust on his hands. He loved the money he earned, but he never tracked where it went. No one had taught him a single sentence about money, and those who tried to teach him settled for saying save. But the real matter was not saving, it was being able to hold on to what you saved. Now I am opening a blank page in that notebook. On it I write, "Dear young man, I am going to tell you 10 things. 5 of them everyone says, the other 5 no one says because they do not sound like investment advice. But the ones that truly saved me were the ones no one says. First rule, measure the price of a thing not in money, but in your life. This rule removes the words expensive and cheap from your life entirely. Because expensive is simply a thing whose cost in hours you do not know. There was a master craftsman I worked with at the workshop. He would look at something in the shop window for a long time, then walk on without going inside. One day I asked him why he did not buy it. The cost of that is 18 days, he said. He knew the price not as a number, but as days. That day I understood why he lived far more comfortably than I did for years. This calculation works because numbers numb a person and hours do not. You can split a number into installments, but you cannot split your life into installments. The moment you convert spending into hours, want and need separate on their own. You still buy what you need, but this time you buy it knowingly. Here is the one thing you can do today. Divide your monthly income by the hours you worked that month. From now on, read every price by dividing it by that number. When I learned this rule, one question remained. If I am spending my hours, where should I put what those hours earn? The answer was in the second rule. Second rule, pay yourself first. Trying to save whatever is left at the end of the month never works, because at the end of the month, nothing is ever left. In my 20s, I said the same sentence every month. This month is a little tight. I will set some aside next month, I said. That next month never came. Then I changed the order, and everything changed. On the day the money reached my hands, I first set a share aside. Learning to live on the rest was easier than I expected. A person lives not according to the money he receives, but according to the money he sees. Here is what you can do today. Fix the act of setting aside to the day your income arrives, not to the end of the month. Keep the share small, but never move the day. But inside every person who sets money aside, there is a voice that wants to try that money somewhere. Third rule, set aside a small amount of money you are willing to lose. This may be the strangest investment advice you will ever hear, but the need for excitement cannot be suppressed. It can only be directed. When that voice inside you is silenced, it does not disappear. It accumulates. And one day it begins to speak on behalf of your entire savings. Most people who do not set aside a small experimenting share end up making one large mistake. I set this share aside too late. After the age of 30, I tried to test everything I wanted to learn in a single place. What I lost there was not money, it was courage. For years afterwards, I could not bring myself to touch anything. Had I set aside a small share, I would have learned the same lesson far more cheaply. This rule works because it confines curiosity to a defined area. If the area where curiosity is confined is small, the mistake stays small too. The large remaining part stays boring, and the owners of boring portfolios generally sleep well. Here is what you can do today. Name a very small part of your savings, your learning share. If you lose all of that money, nothing in your life should change. The kind of loss that would change your life is prevented by the next rule. Fourth rule. Before you invest, build a cash fund that keeps you steady. What finishes investors is usually not the wrong choice. It is needing money at the wrong time. At 26, I opened a small workshop with a friend. We kept it standing for 4 years and then it closed. The responsibility belonged to both of us, and I say that the same way today. What truly hurt me in that closure was having no cash on hand that could wait. A person with no money that can wait is forced to sell on the worst day. A cash fund is really a method of buying patience. Patience does not come free, and its cost is that idle money sitting on the side. Here is what you can do today. Before you start investing, build a fund that covers several months of your expenses. Every month you do not touch that fund, you have made an investment without noticing. Once you build this fund, you also understand why most people cannot. Fifth rule, not showing what you earn is an investment instrument in itself. Visible wealth makes a person sign a contract that produces expenses. The clauses of this contract are not written down, but everyone knows them. A standard of living that has risen once does not easily come back down. The life your circle expects from you quietly draws money from your budget. I knew a shopkeeper who lived in the same neighborhood. For years he drove the same car and sat in the same small shop. No one thought he was wealthy. When he died, it turned out he had left his children property in 3 different cities. That man had not hidden his money, he had simply never bought its display. This rule works because wealth is not the thing you see. It is the thing you do not see. The car you see is not the money that person has. The car you see is the money that person no longer has. Display buy is not wealth itself, but a picture of wealth. Here is what you can do today. When your income rises, hold your standard of living in the same place for at least a year. The difference from that 1 year stays entirely yours. People who live this simply have one more secret, and that secret has to do with time. Sixth rule, your greatest capital is time. Everyone says this sentence, but most people misunderstand it. Time does not mean waiting idly. Time means the same decision multiplying itself again and again. A small amount of savings grows quietly when it is left untouched for a long time. A large amount of savings cannot walk the same road in a short time. That is why the one who starts early with little money and the one who starts late with a great deal hardly ever end up in the same place. What I lost in my 20s was not money. What I lost were the years that lay ahead of that money. Starting 1 year late does not subtract the last year. It subtracts the most productive one. Here is what you can do today. Stop waiting for the perfect plan and start this week with a small amount. A wrong start can be corrected, a late start cannot. Most people who start early, however, make their mistake somewhere else. Seventh rule, forget the password to your account. You will not hear this advice anywhere. Because everyone teaches you to follow, to watch, to check. Yet what ruins an investment is usually not the market, but its owner's hand. The more often you look at your account, the more likely you are to intervene. And every intervention justifies itself with a reason. After the age of 30, I learned this through a small experiment. For 1 year, I never looked at one part of my savings. The other part I reviewed almost every week. At the end of the year, the part I had not looked at was ahead. What created the difference was not knowledge, it was not touching. Stillness is a skill, not laziness. A lazy person never starts. A patient person starts and then waits. Here is what you can do today. Reduce how often you look at your long-term savings to once a month, or even once every 3 months. And during the time you are not looking, do not interrupt your regular contribution. Not looking does not mean forgetting. But what must a person trust in order to be able to stay away? Eighth rule. You do not have the luxury of knowing a single truth. Spreading out is not indecision. Spreading out is giving up the need to be proven right. In my 20s, when I was convinced about something, I would put all my strengths there. When I turned out to be right, I thought myself clever. The one time I turned out to be wrong, all of that cleverness was erased. No one knows the future, and those who say they do are the ones who are wrong most often. This is why a portfolio is built not to win, but to stay in the game. Savings spread across different places keep a single mistake from taking you out of the game. Here is what you can do today. Stop piling your savings onto one side. Ask yourself this question: if the thing I trust most turned out to be wrong, what would be left? If your answer is nothing, it means you have not spread out at all. And then there is the thing that takes a person out of the game fastest. Ninth rule: debt works faster than investment. Investment makes you wealthy slowly. Debt makes you poor quickly. Debt taken on for consumption is selling your future labor at today's price. As you sign that contract, you are selling months you have not yet worked. In my 20s, I was fooled by how small the installment looked. What was small was the installment, not the total. Months later, I realized that because of those installments, I could not set money aside in any month. The reason I could not save was not that I earned little. It was that my past decisions were still taking a share of my income. Here is what you can do today. Close your expensive debts before you start investing. Paying off debt is the simplest way to obtain a guaranteed return. All 9 of these rules were about your own decisions. The 10th stands outside you in a completely different place. 10th rule: the riskiest asset in your portfolio is the people you spend time with. This sentence appears in no investment book, but over the years it was the most decisive factor I saw. Your spending habits are contagious. Your patience is contagious too. Your appetite for risk often belongs not to you, but to the crowd at your table. Among people who are constantly buying something new, living simply turns into a struggle. Among people who are constantly in a hurry, waiting looks like incompetence. No one imposes anything on you openly. It is only the boundary of what you consider normal that slowly shifts. After 35, when my circle changed, my decisions changed on their own. Beside people who wanted less, I accumulated more. This rule works because willpower is limited, but environment is constant. Choosing your environment costs far less than relying on your willpower. Here is what you can do today. You do not need to remove anyone from your life. Just pay attention to which table you spend more time at. And if you can, sit beside people more patient than you. Before closing the notebook, I looked at those 10 items once more. Not one of them described a way to find money. They were all about how you behave with the money that reaches you. Measuring price in life is a behavior. Paying yourself first is a behavior. Confining loss to a small area is a behavior. Holding cash, not showing off, waiting, spreading out, and avoiding debt are behaviors as well. All of them can be learned, and none of them requires extraordinary intelligence. If that 20-year-old had read this list, he probably would not have believed it, because there was no shortcut on the list. At that age, a person wants to believe the shortcut is waiting somewhere. Years later, I understood that the shortcut really did exist. The shortcut was learning these 10 items early. I learned them one by losing. You can learn them by watching a video. The difference is not merely a few years. The difference is the life you can build at the end of those few years. That is why I opened this notebook today. Whatever your age, today is the youngest day of your life. Even if you are not 20, all 10 of these items still work. The best time to start was years ago. The second best is this week. Now there is something I am curious about. Which of these 10 items did you learn far too late? If you write it in the comments, I will read every one of them. If you would like to continue conversations like this, you can subscribe to the channel. Take good care of yourself and your money.